Not one, not two, not three. We get our 10th Sunbelt baseball coach to hop on and preview the season, which is obviously already started. Marlin Ikenberry talks about the internal pressure and the external pressure at JMU to succeed as the Dukes baseball coach. We talk about it next. Locked on Sunbelt.
You are Locked on Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Dave Schultz, Locked on Sunbelt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by Mazda. We put that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. All right, we will go through what may be our 10th and final interview with a Sunbelt baseball coach. Really appreciate Coach Ikenberry hopping on a game day. Hopped on Friday morning, plenty of time before the game started, obviously, but usually you don't see that happening, so I do appreciate his time. So JMU a little bit different than some other schools in the Sunbelt because they've been so good in other sports. Basketball won an NCAA tournament game a couple years ago. College football just played in the college football playoff, all right? So there's got to be this little internal pressure at JMU, not to mention what Coastal Carolina did, playing for a national championship last year. Little external pressure there as well. How have the Dukes used the portal, competing in the Sun Belt? We have some fun. Does he still get nervous? And is he still getting a post-game ice cream after opening day? We do it all next with the head coach of the JMU Dukes baseball team. He's Marlin Ikenberry, and he is Locked on Sunbelt. Dave Schultz, Locked on Sunbelt, your teams every day. We continue previewing the 2026 college baseball season, although it did get started yesterday. We're very honored and thrilled to have Marlin Ikenberry on, the head coach of the JMU Dukes, as they open up the season on Friday against Florida State. So he's hopping on a game day. Really appreciate your time, Coach. Thank you so much. A lot of times, and we'll get to that, about how Coastal Carolina has raised the bar, actually playing for a national championship. But you got your own bar at JMU, right? Mark Byington and the Dukes won an NCAA tournament ball game after winning the Sun Belt Championship. Football team is playing in the college football playoff. How much is that internal pressure there at JMU? Because everyone is good.
Well, it's a great university with a rich tradition of winning in a lot of sports. And I think it's about the people that are there. Having met all those people you just mentioned. They're great people and great coaches, great mentors, and one of the fun things about JMU is just the rich tradition of baseball in the Valley in Virginia. And then you look at our new conference, 2 years ago, going in year, I guess it would be year 3 now in the Sun Belt. It's a great league up and down. And so it's been a really enjoyable league to be in the baseball world, just because of the teams that we play and the people that we play. So it's we know every year going into it that you finish top 4 or 5 in the league, you got a chance to get in that large, and that's been the thing with the Sun Belt ever since I've known the Sun Belt Conference.
Yeah, that's got to be a big deal for you, because regardless of what happens in the Sun Belt regular season basketball year, only the tournament champion is going. So you could have an App State year, you could have a Troy year, but if, I don't know, Cajuns or Texas State gets hot and they play well for 1 week or 1 weekend, they get to go, and the rest of the teams, their season didn't mean anything, so to speak. Whereas you don't have to be great that 1 weekend out of the year if you win your 40 ball games, usually.
Yeah. Well, you look back 2 years ago, going down the stretch for us, we looked at it as, we took one game at a time, and we really got hot in the last, month of the season and really took off. And having some key wins early in the year helped us RPI wise. And so I think, when you look at our schedule this year, our schedule last year, the strength of non-conference games, strength of schedule for non-conference games is important in the Sun Belt, and that's the part where you look at teams in our league that are playing high level competition opening weekend.
Yeah, so how do you go about scheduling? As we're talking to Marlin Ikenberry, the head coach of the JMU Dukes, because we get some interesting ways of doing things. A couple years ago, the Cajuns loaded up Not the toughest of all schedules, but they set themselves up to win 40, 45 ball games, and they did. They got tired a little bit down the stretch, still played in the regional championship against Texas A&M, but kind of fizzled at the Sun Belt tournament. And now I got Tyler Mead from Troy telling his AD, he's like, we love the home games, but really in college baseball, winning on the road is more important. We have to have a few more road games. They're actually starting the year at Mercer. So how do you go about scheduling? And then we got other guys. It's spring break. So I think someone's coming to you. Georgia Southern is coming to you, I think, on spring break. And that following week, they're making their way back and they're playing some tougher competition, taking advantage of that road trip. How do you go about scheduling?
Well, the biggest thing is, we're the northernmost school in the Sun Belt. So, you want to play at home. Obviously, everybody wants to play at home. I'm the first one to tell you that. I always like to play, a top level SEC, ACC team early in the year, opening weekend. And then you like to play 3 weekends at home. Now, how you schedule those home games is very strategic with your geographical location, because right. I've seen it where I've had for next year I've had Penn State on the schedule, but then they found a tournament, and it's kind of a mix and match. Last year was a little bit of a interesting schedule for me. Last year, opening it up and then playing Fairfield, which Fairfield's playing Coastal this weekend, and Fairfield's a right. really good ball club, right. and they have all their guys are old, and so I think the biggest thing is just trying to find the right teams to come in that are going to win their league, be top of their league in the Northeast, that can bust down to us, because we're pretty tough to get to unless you fly into Dulles or into Charlottesville or whatever. So you want to find a team within your geographical footprint that 4 to 5 hours that is a good team in the leagues that you can play, and obviously it's relationship driven too. Sure. You want to play your friends, the guys because they're going to give you feedback on your club.
Sure.
So that's with Link and I, every year in the last 3 or 4 years we played each other, and I always get good feedback from him, and he gets good feedback from me to help our clubs down the road.
So how far in advance are these schedules made? Football seems to be made like a decade in advance. I'm always wondering if those coaches are going to be around by the time they play those games. And now with the different scheduling, we're pulling back out of those. So is this just done a year in advance or so?
It's done 2 years in advance, but then there's always some tweaking to be done.
Sure.
I'm very fortunate to be, in the state of Virginia. You play, Virginia Tech, Maryland, and out of conference scheduling. And then, obviously you want to play your local teams like George Mason and VMIs and the Richmonds of the world, for more of a in-state rivalry type opportunity. But with us being a Sun Belt, with Old Dominion, Old Dominion used to be in the league of the CAA with JMU way back in the day, and then now we're back in the league again. So you have that Old Dominion JMU rivalry, right. Which is a unique rivalry for me because that's my former college coach, the head coach at Old Dominion. So it makes it a lot of fun with the games. But I think when you do your out of conference scheduling, it's very unique, and I think your geographic footprint lends itself. I learned a lot from Gary Gilmore at Coastal Carolina on scheduling, and how he would do it. We'd have conversations about it, and it's a little bit different when you're in a place like Myrtle Beach, where you can invite the Michigans down, the Illinois right. down. We're playing an out of conference weekend on the road 2 weekends from now with Michigan State in a small tournament with College of Charleston, Michigan State, Albany, and Illinois. And I felt like that was a good drivable weekend where you're playing multiple opponents, but it'll be a good weekend of baseball.
All right, a couple things we got to check up on Chris Finwood, because he was planning on missing opening weekend because of becoming a grandfather, and so he's like, the guys will probably do better without me, but I'm gonna go and check out the grandkid for a weekend and come back, because he's got his priorities straight, obviously. Also, that ride to Harrisonburg, because I am a straight shot. I'm in Louisville. It's 64 straight away. So the easy part is going to Huntington, and I don't know if I was oxygen depraved or not, but going up and down those mountains between Huntington and Harrisonburg, that's a thing. Because the first part was 3 hours.
Our driver last year was I was a little nervous. I felt like I was on a roller coaster ride coming through there last year, coming back from Marshall. So, but yeah, I agree.
Anytime it says, beware of the runoff on the side of a mountain, makes me nervous.
True.
We learned how to drive with 10 and 2. I don't think I do 10 and 2. I was doing 10 and 2. Let me tell you. All right. I was on both hands on the steering wheel. Let's take a time out. We'll continue our conversation with the head coach of the JMU Dukes, Marlin Ikenberry. We talk about the transfer portal and does he still get nervous on opening day? We talk about that right after I tell you about Indeed and FanDuel. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just want someone who can help. I want someone with real experience who can jump right in. That's what I like about Indeed. You can get specific and target exactly what you're looking for. It saves time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who are actually a fit. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute or so that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored credit to help you get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed and FanDuel. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on sports you care about the most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of the curling matches that start slow somehow get intense quickly. Speed skating races decided by seconds, hockey games that feel different right from the opening face-off. Even niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow that with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Before we continue with Marlin Ikenberry from the JMU Dukes, let me tell you about the Everydayer Club. Thank you for making Locked On Sunbelt your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live Sunbelt sports every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Sunbelt with no interruptions for just $5 a month, or even better, $50 a year. Go to LockedOnSunbelt.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's continue our conversation with the JMU Dukes head baseball coach, Marlin Ikenberry. We talk about how they go about using the portal and if he still gets nervous because it's opening day. We're talking with Marlin Ikenberry, the head coach of the JMU Dukes. They're opening up in Tallahassee against the Florida State Seminoles this weekend. Really appreciate his time on a game day. 10th Sunbelt coach to join us here on Locked On Sunbelt to preview the upcoming season. How do the Dukes go about using the transfer portal?
You know, we use it. You know, it's more or less one of the new evolutions of recruiting for college baseball. And I've told everybody it's a 70-30 high school to portal team at JMU, or 60-40 depending on what year it is. You know, we added some pieces of the puzzle on the mound in the portal last year. A couple hitters in the portal late. But it's one of the things I've always prided myself on is player development of the high school kids and keeping those guys and more importantly, JMU is a great place to go to school, and so we've been very fortunate. We haven't lost a ton in the portal, but we've gained more than we've lost. So you're trying to manage that whole roster management opportunity. And I thought last year was a really bizarre year in June with all the rule changes, the house settlement, the DSA rule, all of it. I thought it was a mess. I'll be honest with you, I'm very different than a lot of college coaches because I've spent 2 stints in corporate America, and I know kind of like the planning of things. And I just felt like last June was a little bit of a mess in the sense of roster management because you didn't know what was coming and going. And so, that was one of the things that we knew like after last season was, developing our current team, adding pieces of the puzzle, whether it be junior college or portal. The junior college I consider as a recruiting through the spring, where the portal is from June and July, and that's it. By August 1, you better have your team because school starts in 15 days or 20 days or whatever it is. So I felt like that was a good. But like I said, we added some pieces that we needed, and I'm very excited about these guys.
Well, those rule changes happen all the time, right? The Ole Miss quarterback just got a 6 year of eligibility, and I'm telling you, it's coming, Coach. The way the NCAA goes, and I wouldn't trust an NCAA lawyer to get me out of a jaywalking ticket. You're going to get minor league baseball players who don't play in the big leagues eligible again. I think that's what's coming down the pike.
Yeah, and I was in the day where you signed a pro contract, you were done.
You're done. Yeah.
And I think there was a time in there that you could go to Division II if you signed a pro contract.
I think someone mentioned that as well.
Yeah, there was a time back, and I don't know the exact dates, but I remember that being a thing. And I've always been a Division I coach, so I didn't really pay much attention to it because it didn't affect me. But There was a time where some guys maybe they had to be in like for 2 years or something, and then they go play D2. I can't remember the exact rule, but I remember that happened in a few schools in Pennsylvania where they'd pick up a few guys that were professional athletes that would start their education.
And having spent time in the minor leagues as an announcer, I know when you get drafted, it may not be the top guys because they're getting the money, but to entice some of the players to go pro instead of college, once you retire from baseball, it doesn't matter when, the team pays for you to go to school. Sure. So you could do that. You could do that in the off season, a semester at a time, or wait until you're done. And if the career fizzles out without making the millions of dollars, or even if it does, they'll still pay for you to go to school. You have a time frame like a year or two after to start school, and the team covers it. Doesn't matter. That used to be the case. I don't know if it's the case anymore. So that's one of the things they would get you to entice you to go. Talking to Marlin Ikenberry, the head coach of the JMU Dukes. One of the other interesting things I found talking to the other coaches is one of the ramifications that we've talked about, everyone's talked about with the transfer portal, is that the freshmen are getting overlooked. Well, now it's coming back the other way, where guys like Steven Trout at Texas State and Greg Beals at Marshall are telling me they're going back to recruit the freshmen. You're already recruiting the freshmen, and maybe they're getting a little bit better of freshmen that would come to the Sun Belt, or eventually Trout going to Pac-12 2.0. Marshall getting better players because the big schools are overlooking them because they're getting the guys in the transfer portal.
Well, that, and you're seeing some of the bigger schools, and I'll say it because it's not something I love about recruiting, but you're seeing some guys that are leaving the bigger schools that maybe not have stepped on campus yet to go somewhere where they can go play because bigger schools have upped their roster in the transfer portal, and then go back to their high school kids and say, hey, listen, we got this guy for the next 2 years, so you open up your recruitment.
Right.
For us, I think, I look at it two different ways. I look at it like, okay, you recruit a high school kid, you develop the relationship, you develop them, you go, and I think, all of us are seeing this in pro baseball is that the draft is very light on the high school side, more on the college side in the draft. So, you're seeing kids that are possibly the borderline would be, when they had 40 rounds in the draft years ago, they would be a 35th or 30th round draft pick that are not, and now they're going to colleges and playing early in their career. And I think that's kind of the niche of grabbing the high school guys. And the other part, too, of all of it is just, what your supply and demand is, what's your need. And I think when you find a high school kid that's really talented that you like, you want to use them to develop them, but also help win games. And so, I think, like I said, it's a 70-30, 60-40 split. And then you have the junior college world that I think has grown from the transfer portal, where kids are going to junior college and playing early in their career, and we're using that as a ladder between junior college and us. So,
talking to Marlin Ikenberry, head coach of the JMU Dukes, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. We're continuing to preview the 2026 Sunbelt College baseball season, as is it already. There's the tip-off for college basketball. There's a kickoff for football. What's baseball? I don't have a cute line. I mean, it's the first pitch, opening day, but ready to hit off. It's I always tell everybody it's like opening day of Little League. I mean, everybody puts a uniform on. You get the juices flowing. Right. You're fired up to start the season. You don't really know what your team's going to be because you haven't really done much and played anybody in 3 or 4 or 5 months. And so I joke around. So it's like T-ball all over again. Like opening day is the excitement of opening day. And I joked around with our staff earlier today at breakfast. I said, I would love to have an opening day where we're not flying and we're not on the road. We can just do it at home and see what it would feel like. We did it in my first year at JMU in 2016, where we opened a 4-game stint against Bucknell at home, and it was awesome. But with the weather, you're flipping the coin. You really are.
And I this weekend you could play probably in the Mid-Atlantic at home. I know some teams are doing it, but last weekend nobody could have played in the Mid-Atlantic at home. So you kind of are. juggling that weather thing. So I always like to pick an Arkansas or a Florida State or, somewhere south to play where you're going to get your games in. You can get the guys going. A good destination for families to come and watch their kids and kind of start that journey of the season, because we all know it's a journey. It's a 56 game schedule. It's a long season. Your lineup on day one is different than day 56. It has been the 20-some years I've been coaching, and it's just a fun journey, and you do it with a bunch of guys that you love and you bring along, and then hopefully at the end of the year you're at the top of the league and you're playing in regionals and super regionals, and then obviously Omaha.
Well, remember, I know the game is still the important thing, but just like T-ball in Little League, are you still getting an ice cream after opening day?
You know what? I probably will. I got a sweet tooth, so I probably will, to be honest with you. But yeah, no, that's so true, and it's interesting because this preseason has been an absolute grind with weather for us. We're very fortunate that we have indoor facilities that we can get into. We've actually had other Division I teams use our indoor facilities the last few weeks because they didn't have them, and so we've been very fortunate. We've got a lot of work in, a lot of fundamental work in, but we're lucky. We can't enter squad in our indoor facilities, but we can do the fundamentals, batter versus pitcher, and get our work in. But we have a great facilities crew at JMU. They cleared our field last week, so we got on the field. It was weird. We got on the field on Thursday and Friday of last week, but it was so cold you couldn't get out there on Saturday and Sunday. But it was sunny. It was sunny with the field clear the weekend before opening day. But you're like, its wind chills are in the negatives, so you can't go out there. So we ended up doing live inside on Saturday. And then I looked at the weather going, okay, we can get out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We can stack 3 days in a row. So we're going to take Sunday off and go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, which we did. And our guys were ecstatic to be on the field. We did fly ball priority under the lights on Tuesday night. And that's something that we haven't been able to do. So that was a little bit of the interesting. I didn't get mad at the guys for dropping fly balls because like you guys aren't used to seeing them. So
haven't done it yet, right? It's an adjustment. Do you still get nervous on opening day?
A good nervous.
Sure.
A good nervous. It's a good nervous. It's an excited nervousness. And it's usually probably about 30 to 40 minutes before first pitch. Right. I always have that dream that I don't have the lineup card ready. Listen, I've been doing this so long, I'm not afraid to admit it. Like I always have this dream, like at some point between January and February 15th, I have this dream where I don't have the lineup card ready, and the umpires and the coach is waiting for me to get a lineup card, and I don't have it. It's a blank lineup card.
That's great.
And I wake up and I'm like, that'll never happen. So.
Let's wrap up the conversation with JMU Duke's head baseball coach, Marlin Ikenberry. I don't know what we talk about. Oh, okay. 3, 2, 1. Dave Schultz, 3, 2, 1. Let's take one more time out and wrap up our conversation with the head coach of the James Madison Dukes, Marlin Ikenberry. We talk about who has impressed heading into the season, although it's already started, and the pressure with Coastal Carolina winning, proving that a Sun Belt team can play for a national championship. We'll do that after I tell you about Mazda. This is Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. We're going to shout out Texas State. They are just lurking a little bit in that basketball realm. They're a couple games back from that 3 and 4 seed. They got an outside shot at making a run. They took down Troy the other day. Texas State is playing some good basketball. They may be a very dangerous team come the Sun Belt Conference tournament. These remind us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's that extra work off the court. Dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and I never quit. We put the same passion in every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's wrap up our conversation with the Dukes head baseball coach, Marlin Ikenberry. He talks who has impressed so far this year and that pressure that Coastal Carolina has put on everybody in the Sunbelt being able to play for a national championship. Talking to Marlin Ikenberry, the head coach of the JMU Dukes baseball team, continuing to preview the 2026 season. Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right, give us some guys who have impressed you so far, as the season is here.
Well, I'll just go around our field. This is probably
Sure.
the easiest way for me to do it. Behind the plate, we have a plethora of depth, which I'm excited about. We haven't had that in years past. We've had talent. Jason Schiavone was 11th rounder 2 years ago, and Jack Cannizzaro was basically a junior playing as a freshman because he hadn't played a lot, and he did a great job. So we behind the plate, we have Jack Cannizzaro. We have a transfer from St. John's River Community College in Ben Barrow. We have a freshman named Ryan Gocio who won a state championship in high school and then won a national championship in Legion Ball this past year with the Chesapeake team winning the World Series. So he's caught at a high level. And then we have a senior, Jackson Tone, who's really progressed behind the plate over the years, and he's a transfer, in-state transfer from Old Dominion that we got 2 years ago, and he's made tremendous leaps and bounds behind the plate. At first base, we got Wyatt Campbell, who's transferred from Florida Southern. And he's a senior, so he's had plenty of at bats and played a lot of baseball. I was joking with him because it started flurrying in one practice, and he had the whole full mask on where you can only see the eyes. And I said to him, "You've never played baseball in the snow before?" He goes, "Nope, never have." And I was giving him a hard time. But behind him, we got a freshman named
Just to let him know, it snows in New York in April. So if you're playing in the big leagues,
that's what I tell them all. I got to hit with Chase DeLauder, who's with the Guardians over the winter, and he's with up in Cleveland. I said, don't think you're not going to play in this craziness. And he's like, yeah. I know. But Keegan Hessler is the backup first baseman, outfielder, utility player, left-handed hitter, a really talented young man. Second base, Reese Moody's returning. He played center field and second base for us last year. Returning back to the infield, he can play center and second. At shortstop, we have a transfer from Richmond, Virginia. He went to William & Mary and then Chipola and then came to us. His name's Josiah Seguin. He's a tremendous talent, 6'4", switch hitter. I think he's got
shortstop. Did you just say?
Yeah, 6'4", switch hitter. And he's got tremendous ability. So it'll be fun watching him play. Maddox Flex, another one who played a lot last year for us, will be in the middle infield as well with a freshman named Connor Worth, who went to Cox High School out of Virginia Beach, which Cox High School is probably one of the biggest high schools in the state of Virginia of producing really good players. Fenwick Trimble, who played center field for us 2 years ago, went to Cox High School. So we have Connor Worth in the middle of the field. And then Jack Anderson, who played a ton from infield for us last year. He's a sophomore. We gave him a ton of experience as a freshman last year. Physical kid, big kid. He'll play third and second. And then Jack Guerrero is another one who's a left-handed hitter, senior, that'll be in the mix. So I can really go left, right, however I want in every position. In the infield, we have another young man, a really talented hitter named Cam Acock, who's a left-handed hitter as well. So we can mix and match in the infield, pretty much predominantly offensively how we want. It's just a matter of trying to figure out what the best infield is defensively. In the outfield, Kyle Langley, who's been in our lineup for 3 years. This will be his junior year, his third year as a starter, and he'll be in left field. We got Clay Thompson from Pasco Hernando Community College. Clay's dad played at JMU. Clay's dad's one of the 15 big leaguers, and Clay's from Jesuit High School in Tampa, and very talented young man who we got as being center field. And then in right field, Ike Schmidley, who played a lot for us as a freshman, as a sophomore last year, will be a junior. And then we have a couple other young guys that are super talented that are kind of developing right now. And I think, as we get into a month into the season, 3 weeks into the season, you're going to see them in action. Isaiah Nolan and Will Hack in the outfield. So I really have some options. I got some youth and I got some veterans as well. So it's been a fun evolution of watching the veterans lead the younger guys through the path of what it's like to play college baseball. So I'll be interested to see how that all turns out, how it all shakes out here in the next few weeks.
All right, so when you see a freshman coming, because obviously it's different than football, because when you're a freshman in football, unless you're coming in January, you get there, you're in August, and you're playing the game, and then you get the offseason. You do get, 6 months, 8 months before the baseball season starts, but it's got to be a huge difference between seeing a high school kid come in and play as a freshman and then what that body looks like when he's been there for, 14, 15 months. Have you seen that progression, and how much fun seeing is that? They don't have to be huge, but you can see – you can see them fill out a little bit.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's a huge difference. And our strength coach does an unbelievable job with our guys and keeping them healthy and keeping them quick twitch and moving and stronger. And we talk about it in the off season. It's one of the few sports, and however your academic calendar lands, it's one of the few sports where you let your guys go at the end of November and you don't see them until really the middle of January. They're just with your strength coach, and that's kind of how it's been the last 2 years with our academic calendar. With a full week of Thanksgiving break and the exam week, it kind of overlaps, and so our last day is like November 21st, 22nd, and then we end up sending them home for Thanksgiving break. And they're around, but we can't really do anything with them until they come back in the middle of January. So where I talk about building their strength is in that period, that 2-month period where they can focus on strength and conditioning. Where most high school athletes, and it's something I've seen, most high school athletes have never given themselves 2 or 3 months just to focus on strength.
No, I mean, most of them, let's be honest, I know they focus on one sport, but a lot of them play multiple sports. So they're going right from, they overlap, right? They go right from playing for a state high school championship right into playing basketball. There's no break.
And then you're getting pulled by these third-party entities like Perfect Game, PBR, and to do this, do that, playing this, playing that. And I think you're seeing, guys that haven't given themselves a full 2 months of strength gain. So that's one of the things I think with the younger guys I've been really pushing is come to summer school, work with our strength coach. But then I'm finding out, and I've talked to a lot of coaches about this, is like, your freshmen quit playing at the beginning of June. And if they don't play in the summer coming in as a freshman, then they're not seeing a lot of at-bats for 3 months. And then they all of a sudden struggle because they're facing better pitching. And then then it turns into a mental spiral effect of their how they handle failure. So I'm almost leaning to the point right now where I think I want my incoming freshmen to play some type of baseball in the summer, at least for a month or so, and then get ready for college.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap it up here with Marlin Ikenberry, the head coach of the JMU Dukes baseball team, as we continue to preview the 2026 baseball season. All right. So we'll come full circle-ish, I guess. We talked about the internal pressure to win at JMU, but Coastal Carolina raised the bar, right? I know they already won a national championship, I guess about a decade ago, but they play in this new era. They actually played for a national championship against LSU. And if you ask me, they certainly held their own. I know LSU is better. That's fine. But they were right there with them. How much pressure does that put on you? Because that's what's going to happen now, right? In this college football era, right? You got 12 teams going to the college football playoff, and you can't go a couple of years without missing the playoffs. Some of these Power 4 squads, or the coach is going to get let go. And so now Coastal Carolina has shined a light. You guys can make the college baseball World Series, right? And play for a national championship. How much fun is that? You can tell your guys, hey, if they can do it, why can't we? And then you're dealing with the pressure of, we need to somehow get to Omaha.
Yeah, in 1983, JMU went to the World Series. Was the first school in the state of Virginia to go to the World Series in 1983. And I look at that placard and that sticker every day when I walk on the field, and I always say that there's a grand possibility that can really happen. If they did it in '83, we can do it in a year. And I kind of saw it kind of evolve 2 years ago when we went to regional, where keeping everybody healthy and just working in the day-to-day, I say staying in the present day-to-day of the development. We went to a regional final against NC State, and
you had a shot in that regional to go to the Supers. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very fine line of just, hey, if we had pieces of the puzzle in the right place at that time, then we could have been in a Super. And then once you get in the Super regional, it's anything can happen in a 3-game set. So, but I think that's one of the things that you stand with your goals, you set your goals, you keep them in front of you, and you just keep driving every day. And I try not to get too high or too low during the course of a season. But last year was kind of a tough year for us. We lost some key parts of our pitching staff in the wrong time. We lost some key parts of our offense at the wrong time. And so I've been really focused on just, keeping these guys fresh, keeping these guys healthy, almost like the Kirk Cinetti motto, where they practice an hour and a half a day or whatever. So they
got to love that. They love that.
And I'm not so sure he's not right. With this day and age of athlete, so that's one of the things I've been really focused in on with this team. And our pitching staff has a talented arms, and we have depth. It's just trying to put them in the pieces of the puzzle to who's your starter. And I think we get caught up in that in this day and age of who's the starter and who's the closer. And I just say, hey, if I can get 4 or 5 guys to go out and win me games each day and just stick to the routine, we're going to be okay.
All right, we want to really thank Marlin Ikenberry, the head coach of the JMU Dukes, for hopping on Locked On Sunbelt. So this is going to post on Saturday. You guys already played Florida State. Wishing you the best of luck. So the season, you're doing this on a game day, which I know is a little irregular. So I really appreciate your time, Coach. Thank you so much. What flavor ice cream are we getting after tonight?
Chocolate.
Friday night
chocolate.
win?
Chocolate.
Straight chocolate. All right.
Yeah,
Sprinkles?
Old school chocolate.
Are we doing sprinkles?
Simple. No sprinkles, just straight.
No sprinkles. All right, no. I'm a sprinkles guy. All right. He's Marlin Ikenberry. He's the head coach of the JMU Dukes. Thank you so much for your time. Best of luck this season, and hopefully we'll catch up sometime during the year. Thanks again.
Dave, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate you. Go Dukes.